You ever date someone who was 34 years old and somehow still had the emotional skill set of a 14-year-old? Not stupid, not childish in an obvious way, just every time things got hard, they acted like a teenager who never learned how to handle conflict. Here's the thing. Emotional immaturity has nothing to do with age, income, or how smart someone is. Psychologist Lindsay Gibson spent decades studying it, and she found 8 patterns that show up over and over. If you've ever felt exhausted in a relationship and couldn't explain why, stick around, because sign number 5 is the one almost nobody talks about. Quick disclaimer, Dilmano, this isn't about calling anyone a bad person. Emotional immaturity is usually learned. It comes from childhood, from parents who couldn't model healthy emotions themselves. So this isn't a "these people are toxic" video. It's a "here's how to recognize the pattern so you stop confusing yourself" video. Let's go one by one. Sign 1. They can't hear feedback without turning it into an attack. You say, "Hey, it hurt when you canceled last minute," and instead of hearing you, they hear "you're a bad person," and they defend. Gottman's research actually flagged defensiveness as one of the biggest predictors of relationship breakdown. Emotionally mature people can separate "I did something that hurt you" from "I am a terrible human." Emotionally immature people can't make that split. Sign 2, and this one's closely related. Nothing is ever their fault. Somehow, the argument always ends with you apologizing, even when they started it. This isn't manipulation in the movie villain sense. Often it's genuine. They actually believe it. Emotional immaturity distorts how someone processes responsibility in real time. Sign 3, they can't tolerate discomfort, theirs or yours. The second a conversation gets emotionally heavy, they change the subject, crack a joke, or just leave the room. Gibson calls this emotional avoidance. It looks like calmness from the outside, but it's actually the opposite. It's someone who never built the capacity to just sit in a hard feeling without escaping it. Okay, before sign 4, quick gut check. Has anyone ever made you feel like you were the emotionally unstable one, when actually they were the one who couldn't handle emotions? That's coming up in a second. But first, sign 4 is one people almost never catch in the moment. Sign 4, everything is extreme. You're either the best thing that ever happened to them or the worst person alive, depending on the day. There's no in between, no nuance. Psychologists call this splitting, and while it shows up most in certain personality patterns, a milder version of it is extremely common in emotionally immature people, because nuance requires emotional regulation, and that's exactly what they're missing. And here's sign 5, the one I promised you. Gibson actually points this out specifically. Emotionally immature people are often incredibly fun to be around in low-stakes moments, great at parties, charming at dinner. Everyone loves them. But the second real intimacy is required, real vulnerability, consistency, showing up during a hard week, they disappear emotionally, even if they're physically still there. This is why people often say, "I don't understand, they're so much fun. Why do I feel so lonely in this relationship?" That loneliness is the tell. Sign 6. When they feel something, they act on it immediately. Angry? They say something cutting. Right now, no filter. Bored? They're already texting someone else. There's no pause between the feeling and the action. No. Let me sit with this before I respond. That pause is literally what emotional maturity is. Sign 7. Conflict gets resolved through punishment, not communication. Silent treatment. Withholding affection. Bringing up something from 8 months ago in the middle of an unrelated fight. Mature conflict resolution sounds like, "Let's figure this out." Immature conflict resolution sounds like, "I'll make you feel bad until you apologize." And sign 8, the one that ties everything together, they need constant reassurance that you love them, that you're not mad, that everything's fine. But when you need that same reassurance back, it suddenly feels needy or too much. Emotional immaturity is fundamentally one directional. The relationship exists to regulate their emotions, not both people's. So here's the important part. None of this means someone is a bad person or that they can't grow. Emotional maturity is a skill, and skills can be learned at any age, but it takes self-awareness, and often it takes the other person no longer being willing to do all the emotional work alone. If you recognize your partner in this video, or honestly, if you recognize yourself, that's not a failure. That's actually the first step. Which one of these 8 hit the hardest for you? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if this helped, there's another video right here that goes deeper into how childhood shapes this exact pattern into adulthood.